It is 10 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. The chair notes that there is a quorum present. We'll do the flag salute. Flag is over here on the side.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0 is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
Don't know whether we want to add it to the agenda or talk about announcements, but we do need to, at least in the near future, talk about Kevin Hagley called me Saturday night about his water contract on the other end of the county.
Okay, do you want to?
Could you speak up, please? Okay.
A little hoarse today. Kevin Hagwood called me Saturday night and his contract has expired on the water and he's wanting to renew it for 5 years. And I know we had a brief discussion about it. We were going to do something, but he couldn't be here today, but if we get it on the agenda in the near future and he wanted to make sure we were responding to his request.
Yeah. Do you want to add that under 6.2 or do you want to just talk about it during announcements?
We can talk about announcements because it's not really anything we're going to take any action on.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else for additions or revisions? We'll move into 3.0, which is correspondence and public comments. I'll address the correspondence first, and then we'll move into public comments. Let me just bring this up. Under correspondence, we have a couple of items. The first is a special projects grant program final report from South Gilliam County Health District. Let me see what else. For those who are interested, these are all part of the core packet online. So if you want to see how those funds were expended, we require all of our grantees to report back to us. And so those are part of the core packet. And scroll down, and then Lean submitted the expenditure and revenue reports that are the quarterly ones that are submitted to Oregon Health Authority for our public health stuff. So it's a lot of numbers, nothing to read in that, but if folks want to, yeah, if folks want to see how those funds are moving through the county to South Gilliam Health District, who provides our public health services. Those are all available online as well. And then that is it on that piece. There is also, as part of the packet, the treasurer's report from December 2023. So there's obviously the bank account balances, and
So I have a comment about that. I'm trying to double check that we don't have 13 million sitting in the general checking.
We don't?
I hope not. I hope it's in the
Yeah.
government pool and not sitting in the,
You look at the difference in the interest of the 25 million that's drawn
yeah.
hundreds of thousands
I
of
mean,
dollars
it's-
worth of interest with the
5% versus
13%.
0.05.
Not
Yeah,
really.
119,000 versus $249.
And we should be getting over 100,000 interest on, or close to that.
So, and also, you know, banks only insure up to a certain amount. I hope that we're not letting that much sit in our general checking. And the other comment is I found $28,000 missing in the public health funds from October 2023 remittance that was made from OHA. So I sent that to Nathan to see where that's at. I don't know why it was missed, so.
And did you touch base with Nathan about the 13 million? Because that is definitely above what's insured.
Yeah,
Federally,
I think it was after that, but I'd have to go back and look at my emails, but.
Okay. We can connect and just make sure. I think he's out for a bit.
Yeah.
For on some leave, but
And I gotta correct that, 249 interest versus 119,000 interest between a $13,000 balance and a $25,000 balance.
yeah.
25 million.
Or $25
$25 million.
dollar balance.
I hope we have more than that, $40,000. But yeah, I don't think that we should be leaving that much money in the checking unless that is a typo. But he hasn't verified that, so.
We can confirm that, and maybe have him do an updated one if it's a typo.
Is he online today?
I do not see him, so I'll just circle back with him offline, and if that's a typo, we can do a corrected one.
Okay.
On that, as part of the packet. Okay, that is all I have for correspondence, so we'll move into public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county clerk may do so at this time. Speakers are asked to sign in on the public comment sheet or via chat on the Zoom, or if you're dialing on your phone, it is *6 to unmute yourself. Let me see here. You're asked to wait to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. I'm going to start with folks who are in the room and have signed in, and then we'll give an opportunity for folks who've either signed in on the Zoom or dialed in on their phones, and then we'll move on. Steve.
Okay, thank you. Judge Farrar, Campbell, and Commissioners Watkins and Shannon, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. Today, I want to kind of get a few things a little bit clarified here. At this time, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of talk that's gone on around what is known as home rule counties. At this time, I believe it's important that we need to get this clarified so we all have the same understanding of what home rule is. I believe there are two types of home rule counties. There's constitutional and statutory home rule counties. Constitutional home rule counties, or another term used as charter counties. These counties have created a constitution, or another term is a charter to handle matters of county concern. In 1959, the state government provided an avenue for development of county charters by members of counties, provided an avenue for development of county charters by county charter committees appointed by county governing bodies and by members of the county's legislative delegation. In addition to charters developed by charter committees, county charters may be developed and proposed by voters themselves. This thereby exercising their right to an initiative. The other one is a statutory home rule counties, and they operate under the state of Oregon's constitution. For statutory counties, home rule was established in 1973. It was requested and supported by the Association of Oregon Counties that this be passed. AOC sought to extend all counties the local legislative powers then enjoyed only by counties that had adopted charters. The 1973 legislative granted all counties authority over matters of county concern in a matter quite as broad and comprehensive as authority vested by the counties with charters. I'm asking you, what do you think Gilliam County is? Are we constitutional or statutory? It's a question.
We don't have a charter,
We don't have a charter.
so we're a non.
We're non-home rule.
We are home ruled. We fall under, Gilliam County is a statutory county. There are 27 of us.
We don't
This is a
fall under,
document that comes from AOC.
Yeah.
On the
I
front
have
of
that.
it, we
she's
have,
got that.
what's that?
Yeah, I have that.
It says ordinances and statutory home rule, Board of Commissioners. These are the Oregon County structures. And being statutory home rule, Board of Commissioners, ordinances, or any matter of county concern not preempted by state law. If you look under who we are, or the 6 counties that operate with the judge, it says ordinances on any matter of county concern not preempted by state law. Both of them say we are a statutory home rule county.
And I think there's some language I'm confused
The
on.
only difference between the two is this. is we are afforded the 6 counties additional local control, that being probate, number 1. There are 2 counties that now have, in addition to that, juvenile. We were one of those that had juvenile until December 6th. My issue is that there seems to be an awful lot of talk out there that we don't fall under the same constitutional county governing structure as the others. We are the same. And I want to make sure that that gets clarified. The other thing I would like to point out in this, the county structures of the 27 counties that are left, and then eliminating the 6 who operate under a county court, leaving 21 that operate with a board of quote commissioners. There are probably a little over half a dozen of them that have the chair as the administrator of their county operation. The other point I want to make is that with those 21 other counties, all but 1 operate with a 3-person commission. Not 5, not anything else. So this talk of we're old fashioned, we're all that, we are not. We're who we are. With the structure of government that we have is ideal for our level of population, who we are. And I want that to be recognized by the county court in your efforts of changing our structure of government. Thank you.
Next up is Denny Newell.
Renewal Blaylock. I'm joined by Len Ball.
Sherry.
What we share with you this morning is lengthy, so I ask your forbearance. And it's printed material. We'll provide you copies at the conclusion. This comes on the letterhead and under the name of J. Aaron Landau of the firm Harang Long. February 7, 2024. And via email to Elizabeth Farrar. Gilliam County Judge Elizabeth Farrar Campbell, County Commissioner Pat Shannon, County Commissioner Leah Watkins, Gilliam County Court, Post Office Box 427, Condon, Oregon 97823. Read Gilliam County Court's adoption of Order 2023-01. I address you this morning as perhaps court and perhaps commission because we really don't know what the status is. Dear Judge Farrar and Commissioner Shannon and Watkins, I am writing on behalf of Frontier Justice PAC, Political Action Committee, concerning Gilliam County Court's adoption of Order number 2023-01 on December 6, 2023. As explained below, to the extent that that order purports to transfer the county's court's jurisdiction over probate matters to the circuit court, it is preempted by state law and therefore void and of no effect. Provided the Gilliam County Court does not rescind that portion of the order before February 21st, 2024, Frontier Justice PAC intends to seek assistance of the circuit court through declaratory or injunctive relief. Order 2023-01 states in relevant part that the county court desires to transfer juvenile court and probate court jurisdiction to the Gilliam County Circuit Court, and then purports to do so, stating Gilliam County Court transfers juvenile and probate court jurisdiction to Gilliam County Circuit Court effective December 13th, 2023. This juvenile and probate court jurisdictional transfer will continue in full force and effect in perpetuity. The problem is the state law governs where jurisdiction over probate matters lies in the first instance. As Order 2023-01 alleges, under ORS 111.075, jurisdictions of all probate matters, causes, and proceedings is vested in the county courts of Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Malheur, Sherman, and Wheeler counties, and in the circuit court of each of the counties, and as provided in ORS 111.115, in plain terms, that statute does two things. First, it vests jurisdiction of all probate matters in Gilliam County Court, as well as the county courts of 5 other counties. Second, the statute vests jurisdiction over probate matters in the circuit court for each other county than the 6 named, and as provided in ORS 111.115. Thus, in Gilliam County, jurisdiction of all probate matters is vested in the Gilliam County Court as a matter of state law, except as provided in 111.115. That latter statute, ORS 111.115, states, 1, an estate proceeding may be transferred at any time from a county court to a circuit court for the county by order of the county court. 2, the estate proceeding commenced in a county court and in which the county judge is a party or directly interested must be transferred from the county court to the circuit court for the county by order of the county court. 3, upon transfer of an estate proceeding from county court to the circuit court for the county under this section, 1A, the county clerk shall certify and cause to be filed in the records of the circuit court all original papers, records, and proceedings pertaining to the estate proceeding. And B, jurisdiction over the estate proceeding vest in the circuit court as if the jurisdiction had been originally and exclusively vested in the circuit court. The statute does not permit Gilliam County to divest itself of all jurisdiction over probate matters. 3 things are particularly important. First, the statute speaks only to transfer of individual actions. The statute allows Gilliam County Court to transfer an estate proceeding to the circuit court by order. Then, upon transfer of an estate proceeding in that manner, the county clerk certifies and files with the circuit court the documents pertaining to the estate proceeding. It's well settled that when the legislature uses language here referring to the singular in a particular proceeding, that's what it intends. And then there's a citation. I want to make a citation. Where ORS 183.497 refers to what may be done in a judicial proceeding, the use of the singular and definite article includes that indicates the legislature intended it to be one particular proceeding brought before one particular court. There's another citation of court proceedings. I won't go with that. Because the text of the subsection 2A refers to the contract, this has to do with something between the city of, we won't go into it. Anyway, a singular noun prefaced by the definite article the, we conclude that the legislature intended the allowance of attorney fees under ORS won't quote it, to apply when the amount due on one particular contract is less than the statutory cap at the time of the claim is filed. The subsequent reference in ORS, whatever, to the contract reinforces that conclusion. There's a citation. Statutes use the singular quote unquote order unquote refers to one particular order at issue, not all orders generally. Second, when an estate proceeding is transferred under ORS 111.115, the result is not that jurisdiction over all proceedings therefore vests in the circuit court. Rather, by the statute's plain language, the result is that jurisdiction over the estate proceeding vests in the circuit court for the county. That is, over the particular action transferred. And third, when the legislature wants to refer to the transfer of jurisdiction over a class of cases generally, it uses different language. For instance, ORS 111.075 refers to jurisdiction of all probate matters, and ORS 3.260 refers to all juvenile court jurisdictions. No such language is used in 11.115. Will I take it from that?
In short, ORS 111.0115 permits county transfer to an individual estate proceeding to the circuit court. State law does not give the county court the power to unilaterally divest itself of jurisdiction over all probate matters in the first instance. The principle of home rule doesn't change that result. And then we're gonna just get through the verbiage. We're not gonna quote a lot of the ORSs that sustain the reasoning. The reason for that is you will get copies of this to read yourself. So the legislature decided as a matter of statewide policy that jurisdiction over probate in the first instance lies in circuit court for most counties, but not for 6 particular counties, and Gilliam County is one. Unlike concerning juvenile jurisdiction, that decision leaves no room for any one county to decide that it doesn't like where the legislature drew those lines and it wants to draw them differently. And then it sees LeGrand, another case. So it is reasonable to assume that the legislature does not mean to displace local civil or administrative regulation of local conditions by a statewide law unless that intention is apparent. However, when a local enactment is found incompatible with state law in an area of substantive policy, the state law will displace the local rule. Here, the state law and local order are in direct conflict, and they cannot operate concurrently. In such a case, the local law is preempted. See City of LeGrand, blah, blah. So there's a lot of supportive cases to define the ruling that we're seeking, okay? Where a local order or ordinance is preempted by state law, the local action is void and of no effect. We conclude that the ordinance is preempted by ORS and is therefore void. And then it lists ban de camp. To say a body's action is void means that it has no legal force or effect. The result is, notwithstanding anything Gilliam County says to the contrary, as a matter of state law, probate jurisdiction vests in the county court. that has several consequences, among which is Gilliam County, the position of county judge still has judicial function. And therefore cannot abolish the position of county judge. And B, the position of county judge remains that of a judge for the purpose of the Oregon Constitution, including Article 7(1), establishing 6-year terms. To prevent any misapplication of law or misunderstanding by other public bodies, it is essential that either of two things happen. The first option is for the county court to rescind that part of Order 2023-01 purporting to transfer jurisdiction of probate matters to the circuit court. If not, the second option is that our client can obtain a judicial ruling consistent with the above laws. The latter avenue should not be necessary. Citizens shouldn't have to take public officials to court simply to get them to follow the law as written. But if the county court will not rescind its order in relevant part before February 21, that action will be filed. Thank you for your consideration, and please feel free to contact me about this matter at your convenience. Best regards, J. Aaron Liddell. So there you have it. Thank you for your time. I think we need to say at this point that you've been given your options. You'll be given until the 21st to study the document and determine your decision. Otherwise, they're obvious.
I'm sure we have maxed our time, but I would borrow from anybody in the audience time to conclude. I'm speaking for myself in the distance, not for anybody else. I'm concerned that my and other taxpayers' dollars are being used to acquire the services, as you folks said you did, the services of Attorney Lori, last name I forget, Cooper, the services of legal counsel that has afforded you, in all probability, unsound advice. That's not where I want my taxes placed. It angers me that you are not willing to use the vehicle at your disposal to resolve the situation. You could do so free of charge, free to you, free to me, free to all taxpayers. You could do it, but you've chosen not to, and that angers the hell out of me. And thirdly, I don't know what you call it, but I think it's a disgrace when somebody from this court and somebodies from this court bemoan our loss of legal control, while at the same damn time you've given it away. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that did not have an opportunity to sign the sheet that would like?
I think that's probably enough.
To provide public comments?
We'd like to have a response if we could.
We're not going to respond to something that we haven't even had a chance to read. Okay, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to provide public comments?
Could you push the table back and put the owl back where you?
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you.
right in front of Leah.
Yeah, no.
Leah wants it right in front of her face, so. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to provide public comment? If so, it's *6 to unmute yourself if you are here on your phone. If you are on the Zoom, on your computer, it's the lower left-hand side of your screen. Just giving folks a second, just in case. Not seeing anybody, so let's go ahead and move into the consent agenda. Do you guys have any questions on those?
No, I got mine answered when you sent me the original agreement on the batch plan.
Nope, I'm good.
Do you have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of February bills pending review, consider approval of December 6th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, consider approval of January 24th, 2024 special meeting minutes, consider approval of commercial lease renewal agreement with Interstate Concrete and Asphalt, consider approval of amendment number 1 to memorandum of agreement for stable funding of Arlington Health Center, and consider approval of amendment number 1 to memorandum of agreement for stable funding of Condon Community Food Pantry. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
aye,
I rise. This December 6th meeting minutes are incomplete. When you read through the written minutes, there is absolutely no mention of the discussion of the probate that we brought before the court today. And so I would ask that we not put those minutes in to the approval process until they're complete. They do not mention probate discussion in those minutes.
We were in the middle of voting. Please do not interrupt when we're in the middle of
Pardon
conducting.
me?
We were in the middle of voting. And so that would have been
I want to
addressed,
stop that
that
process
should-
for a good reason.
that should have been addressed during your public comments. So there's a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Please don't do that again. Okay, let's move on to unfinished business, 5.1, which is consider appointments of the Gilliam County Administrator Hiring Committee. Excuse me, guys,
I can't hear you any more than you can hear me.
that's because you're speaking while I'm trying to talk, Denny.
That's
I'm
not
willing
true.
to listen if you speak up.
Have a vote here who can hear you.
Then move up closer, please.
There's no room closer.
There are 2 seats right there.
I'll say what I am.
Okay. All right, so we are in appointments to Gilliam County Administrator Hiring Committee. As you all know, during the January 17th meeting, the county court adopted revised hiring procedures for the new Gilliam County Administrator position. Specifically, those procedures state the county court will appoint a hiring committee consisting of 7 members, which includes the county court and 4 additional individuals selected to provide a diversity of thought and experience to assist in the hiring process, including applicant interviews. Appointments will be made during a public meeting on or before February 21st. In addition to the 3 members of the county court, we have a number of members who have agreed to serve. Excuse me, guys. If you need to have a side conversation, could you take that outside, please? Okay, first one is Sheriff Gary Betancourt serving as an elected official representative. Kelly Smith, who the union put forward as a representative both of the union and then to provide employee perspective. And then Denise Ball, of course, raised her hands a couple of meetings ago when we were first discussing this. At the time that I wrote this, we were still recruiting and asking around about a 3rd member or a 4th member. Have either of you, I have not spoken with anybody other than these folks who are listed. Have either of you guys have somebody who might be willing?
Yeah, Todd Turk,
Okay,
I talked to him last night and he would like to serve.
I don't have any.
In that matter, I would like to volunteer myself. If it's going to be And that way, obviously, it's not a letter that's come in.
No, none of Denise's was, asked in a county court meeting, and we asked the people that were trying to balance the board with the, to put a elected official in a
Elected official.
and a representative from the union, and then we're trying to, as much as possible, at Lynch request to do both ends of the county, and so that's why we reached out to the north end, because we're lighter on the north end than we are on the south end.
And I'll try to hold my, there is a representative from the north end and being Denise Ball. Todd Turp is another north end. I'm just offering myself as a south end.
What I would state to that, Steve, is we looked at everybody on the committee and where they reside in what balance that committee. And I'm on the north end and Denise is on the north end, and we're the only two on the committee.
You just nominated Todd on the north end.
That he would be the third, and that's why
Thank
I was looking for somebody to balance the committee from the north and the south,
Mhm.
and had talked, and Todd had asked, and that, it still doesn't get us there, because there's 7, so there's 4 from the south and 3 from the north, but it's closer. As close as I could get.
You're not gonna be equal with 7.
No.
No, yeah, we discussed that before.
And the candidates will be scored. So it's not a matter of voting, it'll be a matter of scoring
Scoring.
and then adding those scores together.
Denny,
I have no angst over Gary, being on the committee. My question is this: there was a process by which, the union representatives came to the committee, and I don't know what the process was. Or did the elected officials choose Gary?
No, the union,
Pardon me?
the union.
The union chose Gary?
no,
No, not the elected. No, the union chose the union employee.
That was my question.
Yeah.
There was a process by which the union employee became a member of the committee. My question is, did the elected
Oh, I
official
don't, yeah.
choose Gary?
no.
Well, I think the discussion, if I remember right, was that Gary has quite a few employees and he has employees that live at both ends. And so he just seemed like a logical choice to
But
be
that
on.
wasn't my question. My question is as to process. The process was, that there was the 3-county court. There was a union representative, and there was to be a representative from the elected officials. And I'm just asking, does Gary represent the vote of the?
There isn't, no. The elected officials did not vote on who was gonna be on the thing.
Okay,
Dana,
you did not vote on who was going to be in, but Gary was your suggestion,
correct.
okay? And then also, we already have the elected officials up there that are already on this committee. So rather than adding another one, which would be Gary, why don't you add Steve Schaefer?
Well, thank you, Dana, for that. My issue is, just sitting here and I was shocked to hear what you had to say, Commissioner Shannon. You represent the entire county. You're not a north end, you're not a south end, you're entire Gilliam County. So
I understand that.
having north, south, I just felt when you're looking at a representative from the public, it's, that it was 2 people from the public. And I, of course, being a county judge, I never believed in a north-south. It was a entire Gilliam County that we did everything that we could possibly do. Hopefully that wasn't a response to COP. I don't believe it was.
My response to you for that is that was brought up in public meeting and was mentioned that I lived on the north end, or a reference that I assume you do. And that's where that came from. It was just, we were looking at the residents of where people are. And you very well know, I represent the whole county.
Yes, I do, absolutely. And
Okay, just to clarify,
I will stand behind
This-
this. I was just
Yeah.
commenting in regards to the selection of a public individual. And excuse me for interrupting. I know how difficult it is. So.
No, I agree. If people are raising their hand, that's fine. It's the
Yeah.
talking over members of the court who are conducting that I am gonna stop. There was a question online, from, I'm not sure. Is that Vicky McKinney? what's her first, Vicky McKinney, is that, did the person from Lone Rock that Pat mentioned at the last meeting decline? I believe that is,
That was me,
Yeah.
anyway.
and she reached out and said, no, and they said no,
Yes.
correct. So we did reach out to someone from,
And then I tried to reach another person and they didn't answer my call, so.
okay, so, commissioners, you have the three that are put before you. For the hiring procedures, there's one additional person. What direction would you like to go in? I mean, it is
Yeah, I mean,
true, the person who asked, is sitting right behind you, Steve, that asked for it to be split as much as we could, north and south.
And I might add, his response was, I do live on the north end, but I represent all the county. So in fact, he did put a disclaimer on what I asked for.
Yeah,
It was
Shannon,
the audience that defined us where we lived.
I was just gonna ask if it is a scoring process and it's not a voting process, does it make a difference whether there's 8 people that are making that decision or 7? For a voting process, it certainly would make a difference because
Yeah.
you would have, and that gives you that ability to not have a tie. But for a scoring process, does it really make a difference?
the only issue we run into is that because we have to adopt hiring procedures that specify the amounts, I don't have a document here that they could amend to allow 8. Because I was not anticipating we would be increasing to 8. So if the court wanted to do that, we would have to bring back revised hiring procedures.
I think we've got lots of applications that need to move forward.
Yeah, there are several in the queue. So I would leave it to you guys to have direction on how you want to move forward.
I move to appoint Judge Farrar Campbell, myself, Commissioner Watkins, Sheriff Bedcourt, Kelly Smith, Denise Ball, and Todd Turp to the Gilliam County Administrator Hiring Committee.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we appoint Judge Farrar Campbell, Commissioner Shannon, Commissioner Watkins, Sheriff Betancourt, Kelly Smith, Denise Ball, and Todd Turp to the Gilliam County Administrator Hiring Committee. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. How do you feel about serving on the planning commission, Steve? We have a
Been there, done
vacancy
that.
on that. We do have a vacancy on that if you'd be interested.
Yeah, I believe it was 7 years on the planning commission. 3 as the chair, so no, I've been there, done that. Thanks, Amy.
I understand that. Okay,
So let me ask you this, can we have an alternate in case somebody can't serve on the?
so long as the 7 people, if there's an alternate, we can't have the one person interview half the candidates and then an alternate.
That would-
It has to be the
From the
consistent.
start of the procedure to the.
But if somebody, for instance, was sick or could not make it and you wanted to appoint an alternate and have Steve be that alternate,
Okay.
then if we end up with somebody who is, for whatever reason, couldn't
Can't
make
serve.
it, then Steve could be the alternate if you're willing to do
I
that.
just, yeah, was looking, I thought it was a public thing in the north and south. And again, I know where you're coming from. I know all 3 of you represent Gilliam County and all of it, and I don't care whether it's right there at the border near Mayville or the Columbia River. Geographically,
Appreciate that.
I have the total faith in everything that you guys do in regards to that, so I just was offering.
Yeah.
And my wife's gonna kill me.
I doubt it.
Do you want to address an alternate? It's honestly not a bad idea if somebody gets,
I absolutely would so move.
okay,
Okay.
To appoint Steve as an alternate.
okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Steve Schaefer as an alternate to the,
hiring committee.
to the, I want to make sure I got it right, Gilliam County Administrator Hiring Committee. All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
That would, I mean, there is a possibility even in scoring, you could have a tie. Or no, the scoring would, no, it would balance out.
Not,
Yeah. All
I
right.
mean, even when you have 4 people on those
Yeah.
committees, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't use.
Usually there's a candidate that will rise to the top, has been our
Yeah.
experience, but
Okay.
you never know.
I mean, actually with 7, it's gonna be, you know, even more so that it will be different between.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Once we get everything scheduled, we'll check in and make sure those original 7 can do it. And if not, I will be giving you a call soon. All right. Yeah, we are on 5.2, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2024-03, authorizing a contract with Kelly Nonprofit Consulting. So this has come back, we've talked about this multiple times, but here's the high level stuff is that we are about to create a new program called Grow Gilliam County. It's grant resources for organizations. And the concept is a 3-year program where Gilliam County would basically pick up consulting costs from a firm named Kelly Nonprofit Consulting for 10-ish nonprofit. There may be more if we, down the road, if there's others who raise their hand, but tends to far raise their hand. And it will allow them to work directly with this group, Kelly Nonprofit Consulting, to identify their, as a board and as an organization, their goals, and to help them move towards a state where they're quote unquote funding ready, I think is what the terminology they use in philanthropy. But basically the idea is that they'll sit down with Kristen's team and kind of do an audit, not in the financial sense, but in a organizational strength sense, and look at bylaws and operating procedures and financial controls if a group is pushing, has quite a bit of money that they're handling. And then develop a work plan with that board. And then over the next 3 years, then they would be working directly with those consultants to update things that need help. And then towards the end of the program, depending on the number of hours that folks need in those initial years, they can also help identify funders and prepare grant applications and things like this. And so this was part of what's been a now 2-3 year discussion about how to provide more resources to our nonprofits who, as you all know, are primarily being staffed by volunteers on boards who don't necessarily have the time or expertise to dig into some of those really nitty-gritty details. So our legal counsel reviewed the contract, which is in your packet. The way this needs to work if the court decides to move forward is this would be awarded through our sole source procurement. And it's based on the justification that Kelly Nonprofit Consulting is the only known supplier of this particular suite of services. We can find grant writers. We can find sometimes people who are willing to look at financial books. It's hard to find an entity that can do soup to nuts, everything it takes to run an organization, a nonprofit organization. And so in order to do that, we would need to adopt the resolution that is in your packet. And then there'll be a notice in the Times Journal letting folks know that we're about to award a sole source procurement. And assuming there are no protests to that, then in 14 days, I would move forward with signing a contract with Kelly Nonprofit. Daniel.
Just a question, what is the dollar amount of the contract sole source?
The total amount, this is over 3 years, is just over $1 million.
And we went sole source?
Yes, for reasons I just explained. Yes.
I'm just asking,
Mhm.
do we not think there's somebody else out there who could provide equal or better service for $1 million?
keep in mind that this is over a 3-year period, and per organization, you're talking about roughly 30.
I don't care per organization, because the contract is not to the organization, it's with one firm for $1 million.
Yes, but I'm describing the scope of the entire project,
That's
so.
not my question. My question is, we are going sole source for $1 million to a firm for which we did not broadcast our interest in general. I want us to want that back, because I think that's just proof for a lawsuit. $1 million sole source. We're not in Alaska or Antarctica.
Okay, commissioners,
Well, my comment on that, because I've had trouble with $1 million too, and the expense of it, and the questions that, if you were to go through that process, we'd have to put out an RFP, I assume, and go through that process, and I'm sure not against doing that. Just to tie that down, but I do have real concerns that we need to move forward with something that's good for our community, that can help them get grants, that can get them funding to do some things that would be really nice for a community to have happen. And I've been harping about that for 3 years.
Well, and I think
So,
we're trying to
but I-
sustain and pass.
I don't
The SIP
know,
money,
yeah, but I don't know
runs
if you
out.
have problems over the $1 million. I choke on it every time I hear
Well,
I just think we don't want to do the right thing the wrong way.
hold on.
so this
One
has been on the agenda several times.
it. One thing that I'm wondering is, of the 10 that have applied, is that public? No, it wasn't in the document. Do we know which entities have asked or said they would utilize this program?
So we sent emails to every entity that has requested funding from the county over the last 5 years. So there's a broad range between the childcare centers to, I think the Condon food pantry is in. I'm not sure if Help is. I'd have to go back and look at the list. 'Cause
Well, I
that
have a
was
specific
created in like,
question, but one,
Arlington.
catch Glenn too.
Lynn, go ahead.
Well, my question is, has there been any due diligence or comparative analysis work on what the cost is per student that you're trying to reach in any other communities that need like work done? I mean, it seems to me like if I was gonna sole source $1 million, the first thing I would do is the due diligence, and I'd do a comparative analysis. I'd figure out what my cost per unit was, and then I'd find out for sure, as Denny pointed out, are there any other providers? And this is not an emergency. If it is, it's one that's been created, not of itself.
It's not.
You know,
I'm
you have
treating
to-
it like an emergency.
It's not, this has been going on for
Yeah,
quite a
so
while.
why not do it the right way? Put a request for proposal out.
Can I
do due diligence.
work through with the court my questions too, Lynn, so that, because I have some of the same concerns, I'm trying to find out some things. So we have an entity in the county that I think could cost us $1 million next 3 years all by themselves, if we keep them alive and functioning.
Yeah.
And if they're in on this, I'm kind of in. I have some real concerns about some daycare issues in Gilliam County.
Mhm.
And we have somebody in the room that I talked to one of his representatives earlier, and I'm hoping he got in on this program of the 10. I don't know whether they did or not, but I don't know. That's why I was asking.
I don't have the list in front of me. I'm gonna go to Dana because you've already talked, so go ahead, Dana.
Okay, is this like, excuse me, this is like a flat rate? You're going to receive $1 million?
No, the contract is that they bill us by actual hours that those entities used. So the not to exceed amount is that $1 million that I talked about. But if the local organizations need fewer hours in a year, then it would be far less than that.
Okay, and am I reading this correctly in here, that you had 10 organizations that responded
Yeah,
and submitted program applications?
yes.
Correct.
Okay, so do we have any idea about how much that's going to cost per organization?
No,
Yeah,
we don't know exactly, do
Because it
we?
depends
So-
on their need.
so roughly, if you take that million over 3 years, it's a little over 300,000, divided by 10, you're talking about 30,000 per organization per year. But in contrast, the amount of money that we fund just the child cares per year is over $500,000 per year.
But the cost
So-
per child is what we're talking about. And
That's not, because it's not just child cares, Lynn. It's the food pantry, it's Summit Springs Village, there's multiple organizations that are in there, that's not just childcare, so there's
Can't
not
count
a
it to a head
clean,
count.
you can't do a head count with that. Denny,
What I have seen happen is that a request for proposal goes out and 1, 2, perhaps 3 organizations that don't have great capability in and of themselves see that RFP and they merge to have the capability to respond. I don't think that for $1 million, there aren't more than one provider, there isn't, I'm sorry, more than one provider out there that could meet our expectations. I think we owe it to ourselves to find that out.
Yeah, I would be concerned with that concept. In that, it should be an organization that offers all those services rather than combining organizations, because they're working with that whole entity on all areas of what they're doing to get them to the final result, which is the funding that they need, based on their shored up and stood up to be running efficiently as an organization.
When didn't you hire a general contractor that had subs?
This is different.
It's the same thing. You guys do what you want, but I think you're just inviting us a cost greater than the $1 million. I mean, I'm not in the business anymore, but I know some folks who are.
right,
When you sent me that stuff and I read it all, and my board read it all, and we thought it was fairly good all the way down to the bottom line, where it said all of our board members had to attend all these classes. That's the way we interpreted it, so we didn't respond.
and that's why there's a little bit of leeway in the contract. If somebody wanted to get in, was not part of the original 10, the intent behind that, Rod, was just to make clear that this was not something the county was going to be able to do on behalf of the organization. That if the organization wanted to be part of the program, that the board needed to understand there was going to be a commitment of your time to work directly with this consulting, or if we decide to go with another group, another consulting group, so that you understood in no way, I think, is the expectation. We will not be micromanaging how you're interacting, but what we don't want is we didn't want organizations to say, I'm in, and then have board members not showing up to their consulting sessions, having the county be paying for things where the board wasn't
Engaged.
actually engaged in the process. And so we just wanted to make sure that when organizations were raising their hand, they understood that they were raising their hand for a 3-year commitment, and that those board members were going to be showing up and using the county's investment to the best for the organization's sort of well-being. So it wasn't, I say that
We
because,
interpreted it wrong, but we were confused when we read it as a board, so we didn't respond.
yeah. And so if that is something that you're interested in going back and talking to your board about, it sounds like we may not be making a decision today possibly. And so we can, I think there's an opportunity if organizations are out there and kind of miss that first call to action, that we could fold them into the program.
And in response to Ross, man, I had a direct conversation with Julius and thought he understood completely and had suggested, just go ahead and sign up. It'll be okay. You know, this is not gonna restrict you in any way that you need to be concerned about. So I assumed you'd gotten it done.
Well, we talked to, I mean, you know how Julius can get, but he
Yeah, I
was
just-
totally against it.
Yeah, I
And
talked,
and it's hard to get all this together, sometimes for even a board meeting anyway, let alone classes.
so would you reconsider and then give us time to work through the process?
Yeah, we considered, but we just didn't interpret it right.
Yeah, so.
I wanted that clarified because talking with Wade and
Absolutely.
everybody else, he said, well, how we can, sometimes we can't all get to a meeting and we
Yeah.
try really hard.
Well, I'll give you an example, like Summit Springs is probably a good example. They've got a regular full-time director, Anna, who's running it. And so the expectation is not necessarily that every single one of those Summit Springs board members has to be at every meeting, but if Hannah and say David Griner, who's the chair, are engaged in that, and the board in general is saying, we understand what you're trying to do, and we're gonna be supportive of that, to me, is just as significant as having all of the board members there. I mean, I think that the whole intent is just to make sure that boards are going in eyes wide open, that this is, as you guys have pointed out, a significant commitment the county is making financially, and just the idea that, we wanna make sure that people understand it's gonna take time organizationally to walk through all of these different pieces, come up with a game plan, and then also implement changes that the board decides is in the best interest of their organization. So, but we would definitely, it sounds like, welcome if you want to take that back to your board and just, you can just shoot me an email or give me a call if you want to be included in that. Cool.
It's not too late for us if we wanted to.
It does not appear that, it appears that maybe there's a request to go back and do a formal RFP.
I think we
Is that
should
what
do
I'm
a
hearing?
formal RFP,
Okay,
I think we need to try to select a company that can do the whole thing. This is different than selecting
I
somebody
agree.
to
I
dig a
think they
ditch
need
for
to,
you.
they need to be similar to what we're actually looking at to begin with.
oh, ideally a one-stop shop. Dana?
Yes.
Okay, I may have missed something, and if I did, I apologize, but how did you come up with $1 million?
It was a bid, it was a
It
quote.
was a proposal.
Okay, so you came up with $1 million and proposed it to them? Or they
No.
came up with $1 million and proposed it to you?
They proposed it to
They
us.
proposed it to us.
Excuse me,
Okay,
the vendor.
So just one at a time, please.
Gotcha.
Dana?
okay, so the $1 million, is that like a maximum?
Yes,
Sure.
yeah, I already went over this, a not to exceed amount.
Gotcha.
Danny?
Do I understand correctly that the vendor you intended or are intending to contract with came to us?
No.
So we have had a couple different meetings about this. And Liz explained during one meeting that when she was at something, she ran into these people and started visiting with them about it. And it evolved, but this is not the only meeting we've had about this.
Yeah, and I
So
think
here we are,
Jenny, a
we're
lot of times-
backtracking.
we're out when people do ideas to us and we pursue and see where they go. This is an example of that.
I was just trying to understand what the trail is that got us to them to us.
Yeah, so the trail was about 3 years ago. Commissioner Shannon started asking what we could do to help local organizations who were telling us they were having trouble chasing grant dollars outside of the county. That's what started the conversation. And so it happened that 2 years ago, I took a class related to grant writing, grant funding, and this particular organization taught part of that class. And so I reached out to the CEO of the company and said, hey, we're discussing how to provide more technical assistance to our local organizations. Do you do that sort of thing? And they said, yes, they are under contract with the state of Oregon to do that in different parts of the state. I asked, what would it look like to do it for Gilliam County? Could you put together a proposal so I understand about what it costs? How many, and then we proceeded to ask organizations locally, is this something that you would be interested in? We asked them to fill out an application, which Rob was alluding to a minute ago. 10 of them responded, went back to this organization and said, okay, can you curtail your, or shape it based on the idea that 10 would be participating? They gave us a number based on that. That's what's in the packet. Yes, go ahead.
The chamber seems to be doing a wonderful job. Are they not already doing these services?
No,
No,
It is beyond their capacity. I think they might actually be one of the entities that is requesting assistance.
They're actually just, I mean, beyond capacity. I think they're beyond their financial capacity. They've had to kind of trim back on community ambassadors, and so they're, I mean, this is a really big, this is a,
helping the chamber do more
this
and
is,
setting up within our own community? I'm just, it's a question.
Yeah, so I think yes, and like we are definitely trying to partner with the chamber in different ways to make sure that they have sufficient resources to do what they need to do. But I think they would also tell you, they do not have expertise in how you set up a nonprofit organization and run it. That is not their bread and butter is private businesses, not necessarily nonprofits. And so they don't have the expertise, and they do very well at grant writing for themselves, but grant writing for, say, childcare organizations or Summit Springs, or I think Brooklyn would probably say.
well, and Brooklyn
Thanks
doesn't
for
want the
thinking of
job,
us,
just to
but-
complicate
Yeah.
Yeah,
that Brooklyn doesn't want that job. We're still trying to hire somebody into it. They're not exactly old right now.
Their operations more efficiently and
yeah.
stuff like that. They're not business. They're promoting business.
Go ahead, Brad.
So you have to go through the full 3 years before you're eligible for any funding? Or can it be sped up? Because the Woolery's come a long way professionally on their own. We're to the final stage of all the engineering and our costs. And everything's in place except for maybe, we got a little bit of work to do, but we've come a long way. We just need some guidance, but
Yeah,
we don't wanna wait for 3 years to build.
yeah, no, so the way that it's structured is that sort of the very first meetings would be that the consultant would come in and meet directly with your board, figure out what your goals are for working with them. So if you have a capital project, for instance, and that's the focus, then that would be where you could put your hours at. But the idea would be that they would first look at all those components that your potential funders are gonna be looking at to that signal organizational strength. And they're gonna make sure that those are all meeting best practice standards for your organization. Assuming you've already done all that work, then the remainder you can, then you don't need those hours to actually get you into funding ready. You can transition into using that organization to identify potential funders and also to help prepare grant agreements
Because we've done a lot
or grant.
with engineers and with other grant writers and got us in a pretty good position. And we've spent our own fundraising money to get there.
Right.
A
so-
lot of it, the county helped us in some.
Right, so the idea is that it's a long enough commitment for those organizations who really are needing to start from the very beginning. Tear down their organization back to the sort of foundation and start over for some of them. They haven't touched their bylaws in 20 years kind of thing. They have enough resources to do that, but for those who are sort of further along in their organizational development, they could use, and that's partly why we're looking at a one-stop shop, is because we want to make sure that whoever we hire can not only look at foundational, here's how you set up an organization, but also understands who the funders are out there, can interact with them on organizations' behalf, have people who understand how to submit competitive grant applications. All of that sort of connective tissue needs to be occurring so that the boards are not working with multiple consultants who then you have to bring up to speed on what your project is.
Okay.
So that's the idea, is that you guys, we want it to be as simple as possible for the organizations to be able to utilize those services. So that you're not managing multiple subcontractors. That you've got one person that you guys know and trust and can work with for others, basically, to feel confident and that they understand who you are as an organization and what your goals are. Denny, go ahead.
Just to be clear, I don't take issue with what you're hoping to accomplish. And for the most part, I don't take issue with the way you intend to go about doing it. Certainly it will be up to this board or however you decide to do it to determine how that money gets sent out in tentacles. My great concern is $1 million looks very handsome to more than one purveyor of these services. And if I had it, I would guess my own $1 million that you in a RFP will find a great response. And that's what RFPs are supposed to garner.
Okay, Shannon, go ahead.
So is this only available for like nonprofits? It would not be available for like the fire district to be part
So
of this?
the particular program, we're looking at just nonprofits, but we talked about this earlier, having, because it's roughly 30,000, at least this is the initial quote that we have, so that seems like that might be a good number to kind of base it off of. What we had talked about for our municipal partners and special districts was when we do our grant program, that we would encourage folks to apply through that. And that way you guys could pick, because this particular entity, and I think we'll be requesting through RFP, an entity that is focused specifically on nonprofits, so they may not understand the ins and outs of a public entity and special districts requirements. So the idea would be that we would still provide the funding, but we would probably work with each of the special districts that were interested to figure out if there's somebody out there that you guys would contract with directly, that would know your sort of specific needs.
Right, because as listening to you explain it, I mean, we probably need mostly help with finding people where the grants are coming from and grant writing.
Yeah.
We're not gonna change the whole organization, but I know that the fire district can certainly benefit from that. When you get $50,000 a year in tax dollars that you're trying to operate on, grants become pretty important.
So I think what we could do, commissioners, if you're interested, when we first started talking about this, Delaney and I went back and looked at the grant guidelines, and we thought it could fit under that, but maybe we can be more explicit in the grant guidelines that we would like our municipal partners to consider applying through that. And then one of the things I think we could also work on is, Miranda and I can work on, is just talking to our other county partners to see if any of them have contracted with grant writers or grant, that are kind of meeting that need. Because what I would suggest then is, rather than the county entering into an agreement directly with that provider, that we provide the funding to the municipality, and then they figure out who's the best fit for what they're looking for. But I think we have been talking about how to provide more capacity for municipal partners too.
Just quick. It sounds like there's been a lot of discussion, and forgive me, I don't zoom into all your meetings. I would just ask, Commissioner Lee Watkins, you said that there have been, you talked about this at a previous meeting. Could I ask, maybe you just send me a note that references what those meetings were so I could catch up?
Sure, I'll go back in and look at them.
You have to go back a ways. It's been going on a while.
Yeah, I think we started talking about this in 2021.
Yeah,
So
which was before me, so.
coming up on 3
But
years.
at least 2 meetings, we've talked about it since, well, this is the third one, I think, since I've been sitting here.
Okay, so it sounded like there was consensus that we would like to go through a formal RFP process. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. So, so that folks know,
Well, one thing I want to say on that,
yes,
that expediting that is probably crucial because of the entity I was concerned about.
yeah, I hear that.
I don't know that, I mean, I don't even know if they've applied, but good Lord, this is perfect. I mean, how do we get there as quick as possible, because
So, Vicky had asked, sorry, Vicky, I missed your all the back and forth. She said, it seems we may be covering an easy solution. What about spending that $1 million and just divide it between all the applicants? Is this $1 million per year? No, Vicky, it's $1 million over the course of 3 years. So it's a little over 300,000 per year. And just for sort of context sake, we granted over 400,000, well, actually over 500,000 between the two childcare centers last year alone. So doesn't even touch where they are and what they need, financially.
And I think they're missing the point.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is get somebody that can teach them how to sustain themselves down the road. So when all this money goes, poof, then they have the ability to keep on going. Not, because we are not going to continue to be able to throw money at entities forever. There's going to be a day when, and Steve knows this, that the reckoning is gonna come to the end and so part of that, the whole discussion was how are we gonna have these entities
Not
be
fall off the cliff.
whole
Yeah,
and be able to propel themselves forward without being on Mama Gilliam County, so. There you go.
Discretionary funding could get tight. And that's how we do a lot of this. And the beauty of this is making sure where those funds go, that they're gonna be able to move forward in a positive manner and not give them money and they fall on their face. When we get into these other discussions about throwing money out to just through grant programs and not knowing how well those entities are shored up, we've seen it even with some grants through the port and stuff, where money's been given out for small business, and nothing developed out of it. So it's making sure that money gets used effectively for the long run.
it's the teach them to fish approach rather than the give them the fish approach. For those who, that helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so, she said, thank you both Leah and Kat for your responses. She appreciates the clarification. Okay, I totally hear what you're saying on expediting. I will also say that we are, as we just noted, trying to hire an administrator, short some staff, about to enter budget season. So I'll do the best that I can to get it out there. But there's a couple of other major initiatives that we're also doing simultaneously. So I just want to set expectations that it may be a little bit before we get this back on the agenda. So we'll do the best we can.
Well, it's been hanging out there since 2021, so.
A couple more months probably is gonna be, I think the organizations know it's coming eventually in some form or fashion, so. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
So I want to thank Commissioner Watkins for when you speak and move and things like that. It takes the camera off of me and puts it on me.
Oh, God.
Just wanted
Thanks
to
for
thank you
reminding
for
me,
that.
that
So
thing is
maybe
not my
occasionally
friend.
just a little jerk here and there.
Leo is really.
I hate this.
The entire
If you
time
push
here.
that clear back to the end of the
I'm
table.
trying to hold still so it doesn't move to me. but-
Yeah, you have to like, don't move at all. Okay,
Miranda says, don't put your cup in front of, put it in front of Liz.
yeah. that's
Well, all
fine.
in fun. So, yeah.
I hate that thing, it is not my friend.
Okay, all right, so more to come on that, until another day, and I think we'll move into 6.1, which is consider appointments to the Gilliam County Budget Committee and Compensation Board. Okay, I'll walk through this holistically, and then we can decide how you want to talk about, because there's two committees we're appointing to. So Gilliam County Budget Committee has one vacancy, which was advertised in the Times Journal on January 4th and 11th. Just to clarify a practice, when we say vacancy, that doesn't necessarily mean the incumbent does not want to be reappointed, but in response to a request from Les Ruark a couple years ago, as a practice, we advertise when there's an opening, even if the person wants to be reappointed.
Because it just expired.
Because it just expired, exactly. It expired at the end of the year. So budget committee members are appointed to 3-year terms. Current members on the board are Brad Anderson and Sherry Wilkins. Wally Powell's term was the one that just expired December 31st. We received 2 letters of interest for that position. Wally, as the incumbent, responded that he would be interested in being reappointed. Denny submitted his name as well. And then the other one to discuss is the Gilliam County Compensation Board. It currently has 1 vacancy as well. again, advertised in the Times Journal on January 4th and 11th. So the statute that governs the compensation board is ORS 204.112. Basically says it shall consist of 3 to 5 members who are knowledgeable in personnel and compensation management. They put that in there, you'll see why here in a minute. Normally, we, I think historically have had 3 members in clerk because that's what we could get, and so that's what we went with. So the current members, and there is no, statute does not set what the length of term is. So as a practice, we've just tried to appoint so that we don't have them all up the same year, so that we have kind of some consistency. Current members are Eric Harrison and Nicole Schott. Sue Greer was the third of that trio. She indicated to us that she is not interested in reappointment. We received 3 letters of interest for that position from Green Durfee, Aaron Hansel Heidemann, and Rich Harper. And so all of that to say, the reason I said there's 3 to 5 is that the county, of those 3 that submitted, the county can appoint any or all of those individuals depending on your preference. But the budget committee, you'll need to choose between the 2 to have a budget committee that's functioning. Where would you like to start? Should we start with the budget committee?
Sure.
Okay. Thoughts?
I am inclined to reappoint Wally Powell as the incumbent to the budget committee. And if we're gonna go north and south end, that would put that committee at equal number of members from each end. The other thing is, I will say that when I was on the grant committee with Denny, 2 of the meetings, he did not bother to show up at. So my concern is that,
I take exception with the use of the word bothering. I did not show.
he did not show. Okay,
Correct. Thank
you did not show. So we waited and you did not show. So, I would move to appoint Walter Powell to the Gilliam County Budget Committee effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we appoint Walter Powell to the Gilliam County Budget Committee effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then I need some direction on what you guys would like to do with the compensation board.
I feel like that all 3 of those people would be good.
The nice thing about, I will say, the nice thing about appointing 3 is I think both Eric and Nicole's terms end next year. And so if you appoint 3, then hopefully you still are meeting the minimum 3 statutory requirement if they both decided.
Yeah, I think if we have room for 5 and we have 5 interested, we need to give them
To do
the
it?
opportunity
Okay.
to serve.
So what you see in front of you, there's no special, who was appointed or who suggested to be appointed to what. I literally just put them in
Can we just-
alphabetically and staggered the terms, so.
Okay,
Can we
There's
just
nothing-
move to approve the slate that have applied?
I can.
Well,
Do
I
you want me
need
to read it?
effective date. I need.
Oh, I
I
see.
move to appoint the following individuals to the Gilliam County Compensation Board. Green Durfee effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. Aaron Hansel Heidemann effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. And Rich Harper effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we appoint the following individuals to the Gilliam County Compensation Board. Green Durfee effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. Aaron Hansel Heidemann effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. And Rich Harper effective February 7th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you to everybody who put your names in to serve. That's a huge help, but I don't have to go convincing people to please serve on the committee, so I appreciate that. Let's move into announcements and next meeting. Commissioners, right now, per our hiring agreement, or hiring procedures, we had slated for potential interviews of the administrator candidates on the 21st of February, which is our next meeting date, because we technically are having a meeting, will just be an executive session interviewing candidates. So my plan was to possibly, if there's anything on consent agenda or something that has to happen before the March meeting, that I would do sort of a brief meeting if we need to, but otherwise we would likely not meet, so that we can do probably a full day of meetings that day. I just wanted to give you guys that heads up and make sure that there was no concerns about that. Obviously, if we have something that comes up, we can always call a special meeting or figure that out, but given the number of applicants that Miranda's received, we may actually need 2 days, so we'll see.
Are we to know what the number is as of now?
That it will not close until the 14th.
I'm just
So-
curious. I'm just curious as to what the response.
I believe there's 5 that have completed, but there's 15 that have partial. And so we're waiting on those other 10 to see if they're gonna submit the whole application. So it could be up to 15 so far, and we still have a little over a week left before that initial deadline is. So there may be some people who apply over the weekend too. Okay, does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay, then Pat,
So are we gonna narrow that field down?
good question. I think we need to see once it closes, well, it technically is not closing, it stays open, but once that initial deadline occurs, then I will sit down with Miranda and see how many actually completed their application, because they're required to have a complete application by that deadline. And so if it's just the 5, it's likely the committee could easily interview 5. If it's substantially more than that, we have 15 people in there, then we'll need that hiring committee will jointly figure out if they want to interview all 15. They'll give Miranda no direction on how many people to schedule. Denny?
I understand that an incomplete application is not an applicant. I also called your attention that your hiring process document says all applicants will be interviewed. Thank you.
Thanks. Denise?
And because this is on your meeting day of the 21st, will it be in Arlington?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask that too.
Good question. We haven't got to that detail, but I think it can be held wherever the committee would like. So, well, I'll need to know in about a week when it is, but
We're gonna put questions or ask for questions to be submitted by the committee members to be asked during the interview process. Could we ask the committee members where they would like to have the meeting, and we can kind of incorporate that into location?
right, so I'll send out, now that the members have been appointed, I will send out an email most likely later today. There's sort of a draft list of questions, so I'll send that out so that.
We would
committee
not have
members-
to do it in a remote location. If it's in Condon, we could do it courthouse.
The courthouse will be still under construction up there, so it's probably gonna be noisy. So we would likely need to pick the courthouse would not probably work right now, with where they are in the construction schedule. But so next steps for those who are curious, for Denise, who's on the committee, is I will, we'll have sort of our template questions that we normally ask of applicants when we're doing a recruitment. I will send that out to the committee members and ask them to get back to Miranda with other questions that they feel get at the applicant's ability to do the essential duties. And then all of those need to be run by legal counsel to make sure there's nothing in there that legally we can't ask during an interview. And then once that interview list of questions is finalized between the committee members and legal counsel, then Miranda creates a scoring sheet because we have to follow veterans preference laws and some other things. So the way that we score all has to be computed. It's very math centric. So Miranda will then create the scoring sheets with those questions embedded so that with each question you have to score a amount and it all has to add up, and the veterans preference has to be a certain percentage and by law. And so we'll make sure all of that, Miranda will work with legal counsel to make sure all of that is in compliance with veterans preference laws and that we're not asking anything that we're prohibited from asking in an interview. And then I think most likely what we would do then is if we're planning on interviewing on the 21st, that Miranda would likely, for those 5 who have completed applications, understand many of them may be coming from out of state. So we likely will begin reaching out even probably this week to get that date on their calendars so that hopefully everybody can be hearing it in person on just one day.
Good.
Is the ideal. We may need to go over 2 days if we've got applicants who just can't make it to Oregon on that specific day that we've chosen. Dana, go ahead.
Are there any applicants that will be provided with those questions ahead of time?
That will be up to the committee to decide, but if the committee decides that they want to release any questions, they will have to go to all applicants who are being interviewed. So out of fairness to the applicants, so. But that will be up to the hiring committee to give guidance to Miranda on whether they would like them to have. Sometimes we do a partial list to folks just to see how people prepare for big things.
There's 2 sides to that.
Yep.
How well do they work preparing for it, and then how well do they react when they haven't been prepared?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever released a full list of questions, but we have in some interviews released a partial list to see if the applicants will show up prepared to answer questions they know they're going to be asked and how they prepare for that. So that will be up to the hiring committee to give Miranda direction on what they would like to be released prior to the interviews.
And we'll be contacted by email because we don't meet again until the day of the interviews.
Correct. So it will primarily go through Miranda because of quorum issues with the 3 of us. And so, but I will sort of be connecting Miranda and helping her talk to legal counsel and do all of those things behind the scenes. But you will expect, if she does not have, I think we have your email address, but if you can just make sure that whatever one you prefer to use for it, Miranda has. And then she'll send out kind of the draft list of questions, ask for that feedback by a certain
We'll
date.
have to get
And-
Todd's,
What's that?
We don't have an email on Todd.
If you could track that down for Miranda, that would be great. Obviously, we have all the Gilliam County folks in-house, so it would be just Denise and Steve as the alternate. I think should be part of creating the list of questions, just in case you end up being the person.
Yeah, I think you stay with the original 7. If something were to come up, I can be filled in real quickly. So
Okay,
done the interviewing process on many different occasions, so I don't see where I wouldn't be able to get caught up quickly.
yeah, you know how this looks from the other.
Yeah, from the other side. So,
It's much more dry than,
yes, I don't think I really need anything initially.
okay.
I think if we do come up with.
If you can for now, maybe hold the 20th and the 21st.
Absolutely.
And then we'll, hopefully, once Miranda starts hearing back from candidates, we can confirm times and things, but I think we
You
might.
give Miranda your email before you leave. She doesn't have it already.
She may not. I don't believe you.
So you'll hear from Miranda shortly, is what I'm
Okay.
saying. Okay, Pat, what do you have going on?
Well, the Eastern Oregon Caucus calls have started again. I had the second one a week ago yesterday. Talking to the senators and representatives on this side of the state about legislation that's coming up. I met the same day with a representative from a large industry that's looking at north end of the county, which have been doing every 2 or 3 times a month. We've been getting together on where the project's at. That afternoon, we did a maintenance waste consultation with a company on, maintenance waste at the county road shop to ensure that we're in compliance with DQ and EPA on how we manage all of our waste streams. Went to LeGrand last Thursday to an EOCA meeting. Obviously, their lobbyist was there and talked a lot about what's going on with the legislation, what affects the east side of the state, mainly in that meeting. And then was in Salem. Well, I had AOC, the preliminary AOC meetings with Transportation and Community Development and Governance, Revenue and Economic Development were Friday. Did those on Zoom and then went to Salem Monday and participated in the rest of the committee meetings and legislative meeting and was at the board of directors meeting now that I'm on those two. So been kind of a crazy couple of weeks and it'll probably continue for another few weeks anyway. Legislative session is going to go rapidly. Some interesting bills that we're guiding the lobbyists on. Pretty good packet. And lots of stuff, but they're trying to push it through. It's a 35-day process and speaking to local control, I think I'm going to speak to local control because I think there's you can look at local control from a lot of different angles and our judicial movement has been made recently from Gilliam County. It has gone to Gilliam County Circuit Court, not state court. There's no state circuit court. It was Gilliam County Circuit Court. And when I'm looking at the local control that I've been looking at, it just seems really, really unfair that there's 6 counties that are treated different than the other 30 in the state of Oregon by statute. And so I have some concerns with that. It's not fair because we're too small and too rural that we get treated differently into that.
Yeah, what do you guys want?
I would just like to clarify one thing that the paper printed that it said that we were gonna spend 30 million on broadband. And just to make sure that everybody's clear that that was not the case anymore, since half of the county went away with the rally,
And
so.
we're not going to spend 30 million.
We are not.
Trying to.
Get grant,
Procure
we're trying to get
some
grant money to, and I think the figure they threw out was more like maybe 14 million or something like that.
14 million would be the grant money we do.
And the BTAP thing that we applied for was for the $150,000 grant to apply for help apply for the federal funds, so. So the county is not spending $30 million. I just wanted to put that out there.
That'd be a big art.
Yeah,
No,
yes. And,
we're not doing that.
otherwise, I've just been working on public health and meeting with the transportation people and I sat in on that one meeting that you sat in on.
They were on the Oregon Caucus Call.
Yeah.
Eastern Oregon Caucus Call.
Yeah, so,
It's the Eastern Oregon Counties Alliance, isn't it?
They changed the name of it for legal reasons in public meeting. They now call it a caucus.
Caucus Association or something? Okay.
They call it it's listed, it comes into us as a Eastern Oregon Caucus Call with Eastern Oregon senators and representatives and all the commissioners from the 15, there's about 13.
Yeah, it's been the same for a long time. It just wasn't, when you had talked about.
Senator Finley's really driving that, organizes that and puts it together, and then Representative Owens just kind of, the two of them really drive all that. It's rest of
Yeah,
them.
Todd, well, having.
Hansel's always there. Greg Smith doesn't attend a lot of them. Sometimes he has his representative there.
Yeah, it's a very good organization. Ted Varioli was one, and Ted Varioli and Laura Pryor actually kind of.
Well, it's good contact with legislators on the phone. You can ask them questions and.
Good.
So-
Yeah. Just the name was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did, actually, it was, yeah.
It's nice because I can just sit in my pajamas on my recliner, and listen to the call.
I shouldn't have that luxury. But that's great, you.
Yeah.
Any other updates?
No, nothing from me.
For me, I wanted to let you guys know that Sheriff Bettencourt and I are moving forward with exploring the, remodeling of the North Fire Hall, the old one, for the sheriff's office space. And so, Vernon Gray completed some initial drawings. The sheriff's office went back and forth with them, with their staff, to make sure it met their needs.
Wow, that was
Vernon,
quick.
yep, Vernon gave me, and which Gary just sent this morning, an updated proposal to do more detailed drawings with an engineer. That I just wanted to flag for you is well below our procurement thresholds for me to be able to do a direct award of that under our, it's less than $10,000. So I'm, unless you have objections, gonna proceed with approving that so that Gary can get drawings lined up, and that will allow us to get a sense of how much we might be looking at to do a remodel. So it will eventually come back to the court, but this is the preliminary work that needs to happen so we can figure out how much it might cost. Just wanted to let you know that's moving forward. I also
So
wanted,
will we have some kind of agreement with the fire district?
so I think the plan is to get the conceptual drawings or get the drawings completed so that we can talk to contractors about what it's not the formal bid process, but just get us like order of magnitude of what
They're gonna have to do.
what it might cost.
Okay.
And then Gary will come back to us to compare that with other options, and the court will make a decision on which direction it wants to go in. So if it wants to proceed down this path, then we would move forward with finalizing a lease agreement with the fire district and all of that. If the court decides it wants to go down another path, then we'll pursue another path.
Okay.
But this is checking on the viability and the financial, potential financial impact, to do this route. So there's that one. The other thing that I wanted to flag and ask for some feedback on is, of course, it's not loading, but there is a, I want to say it's a state parks. I can't remember who the grantor is. Yes, Oregon Parks and Rec Department has a local government grant program open right now that addresses outdoor spaces. And there's a large grant application of up to $1 million. It's due April 1st. Small grants of up to 100,000 are due May 1st. And then planning grants of 50,000 are May 15th. Once I wanted to flag that if you're part of a local government entity, you might be chasing some funds, this might be an option for you, but I wanted to see if there was, if Miranda and I should be looking at this for the park, the little park combination electric vehicles charging station, behind the library.
After the city's input?
After this, I will go talk to Donald about his
Yeah,
concern,
we need to
because I
talk-
think he's.
Donald wants a cement slabs so Rod can park his wagon there.
I mean, I get that, but there's also the chamber and other people who have asked that there be some green space in there, so I think there's maybe a combination.
I mean, if we're gonna move forward with that project, we need to see what we can do with the grants, absolutely.
Okay,
But if we're going to, back that off for more of an EV deal and pour a cement slab, I think that's a different conversation.
okay. How about this? How about in the March meeting, the first March meeting, since it's in Condon, and we're talking about a park in Condon, we can put that on the agenda and ask for some input. And that would,
Get the city to come give us some of what they're,
and then that would give us
advocating
about a
for.
month if we decided to go on the green space route, to pursue the grant. Okay, I just needed some direction on that. We'll get that added. Let me see what else is happening here. I was also in Salem Monday and Tuesday, meeting with meeting with AOC folks and then also meeting with legislators, primarily around early learning funding with my early learning council hat on a little bit. But there are several things that are impactful to the childcare providers in Gilliam County that we are working on getting folks on board, some asks that are important to families who rely on childcare to go to work in particular. So those were good meetings. Excited about hopefully having some movement on those. Let's see what else we've got here. We had a Frontier Talent Board meeting last week. Not a lot, it's pretty quiet over there. So I don't have a lot to report other than the Cottonwood Tower is up and functioning now, which is good news. Yay, it's only been 10 years, I think, since when they got that grant application. So it's finally up and they are working with, I think ODOT, I think it's ODOT is gonna be providing, has donated a generator so that that site stays up.
So that gives them coverage all the way down the canyon and up the other side?
Pretty good coverage from my understanding.
Yeah, when we went out in the ambulance the other day, somebody said, oh, I have radio coverage here, where we have not had radio coverage before. So it is a real benefit.
Yeah, you know, that was a partnership with Frontier Telenet, and ODOT kind of put that over the top across the finish line. So that, that's great. Sheriff Badcourt was very pleased about that. We are also talking about, the sheriff's office is working with Frontier to put some cameras down on our side of the river. Because folks parking their vehicles, unfortunately, Gary was saying always about a half dozen a year that of vehicles that get broken into down there. So we're trying to get some cameras down there so that they can at least see what vehicles were coming in and out, and hopefully try to hold people accountable for that behavior. So that's also happening. And then they're doing right now, going through a lot of, it's mostly just paperwork, but getting all the leases renewed with landowners and things like that, some of which are Gilliam County landowners, but that all sounds like it's going pretty smoothly. So other than that, let me see what else I had. Last note. I did want to confirm with you guys that the BTAP application was successfully submitted. We should hear back in April about whether it was funded or not. And so assuming that it is funded, we will likely have a addendum to the contract with LS Networks coming back to do that next phase of work.
Is there a possibility they won't fund it fully, or?
I mean, yeah, there's always that possibility, but
Sounded like he was fairly confident we were in a good position though.
based on the criteria that they look at, we're in a weird situation where bad is good in the grant funding. So like some of our, when they review some of our risk factors, we score high, which is not a good thing for the community, but it's a good thing for asking for grant money.
Yeah.
So the hope is that we will
Get the whole.
yeah, and because we did all of the work that we did, the legwork that we've done, and that the city frankly did a ton of it. Because of that sort of long history of both the county and the city of Condon working on this issue, there's a lot of history of community engagement and involvement in these discussions. And so that also helps us score really well, because we're not starting from the beginning of a project. We're definitely midway through. The middle mile line that Steve was part of, that was a big part of the application as well. And so anyway, I'll let you guys know when we hear back, but hopefully it's good news in April.
Hope so.
And other than that, Miranda and I are going to be working on getting everything set up for the administrator. interviews.
I have a question on the middle mile that. Cause there were so many pairs that came through that, some city owned and some county owned, and now that this end of the project is tied up, would those be available for the north end?
No, well,
The county.
the county's, so.
Yeah, the cities probably wouldn't, obviously, but then they got no use for them unless they sell them to the
Yeah, so, yes and no.
provider.
There's also Windwave has the bulk of those as well.
In
Those
that-
are also
in that
available.
same,
Yeah, and so I think the thing that was smart about the way that that project happened was that they worked very closely with Columbia Basin to make sure that the connection points into that fiber line, the access points are lined up with transmission lines and rights of ways that Columbia Basin has. And so, that will be the main trunk, and then it'll kind of branch off from there. But there's a whole section of the north part of the county that is not gonna be even remotely close to that middle mile. So there's gonna be build outs in other sections, and the way that the BTAP application sort of looked at it and what LS Networks will be charged with is figuring out how to build in segments to meet whatever particular grant that we're working under, because there will be ARPA dollars. So the last of the recovery dollars is one tranche of money that may only cover certain parts of the project. And then the BEAD dollars, which is the big infrastructure dollars, they're coming out later in the cycle. And so most likely, if we do not get it fully funded in the ARPA round, then we'll have to break up the project and we'll get ARPA to pay for portions, most likely the low hanging fruit, which is those residences that are right along the middle mile or easily connected to the middle mile line. And the folks who are in outlying parts of the county, we would go after the BEAD dollars for, in a separate build, basically. So, but LS Networks will, assuming we get the grant, LS Networks will come back and say, this is how we recommend that you approach it. And then Nick is on, will continue to be on contract to sort of help make sure that the BTAP dollars are implemented and expended. And then part of that decision, which will maybe at the end of this court's, I'm not sure if it'll be us or it'll be the next court, we'll figure out their application strategy for those other grant funds. So
the, one of the piece of legislation is a lot around right-of-way bills, which for counties could mean charges for right-of-way usage, and it's kind of something we really want to keep our eyes on with all the.
it's Owensville, right?
Well, it's an Owens bill really driven by Paul and Union County, but there could be some revenue that could be generated off of right-of-way use on county roads that's could be substantial with all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah. So that's all I've got on that. The construction in the courthouse is moving on schedule. So far, no major delays on equipment and supplies. So hopefully everything continues to look good for reopening in early April. That's the timeline that we're working under. So just a couple more months of being displaced. Let's see if there's anything else.
I think it's really noisy for the offices that are very close to the bathrooms.
They didn't realize there was gonna be, the walls were gonna be metal rather than wood, I think.
Yeah.
A lot louder. One thing I wanted to note for the public is that I think the 911 board is looking for budget committee members. Anybody would like to be considered for that, please reach out to me and I'll just forward your name over to Kim Snyder, who helps do the admin stuff for the 911 board, but I don't know, but the auditors gave some feedback on who needs to be on that committee, and apparently we've been doing it wrong, so we're trying to fix that and get, community members on that. So if you are interested in raising your hand, it's a pretty low, level commitment. It's like one meeting maybe, but it's a really important thing that you're deciding, which is how we use our $91 to fund, PSAP. So, the 911 center. I think that is all that I have. Do you guys have anything else? I feel like I might have forgotten something, so let me just double check. There's nothing else in my email that I said I would bring up with you guys. Anything?
I did volunteer to be on the South Gilliam Health District budget committee. Speaking of glutton for punishment.
You're gonna have lots of budget experience under your belt. I think that is all that I have. So if there is nothing else,
There is, McKed and Norcore coming up to right away too. McKed we're in the process of moving into McKed, and their executive board meetings tomorrow night.
When is that gonna happen? Soon?
Well, it's still up to the federal government as in EDA.
It's been up to them for 10, 11, 12.
Well, we're close, we're closer, Steve.
Yeah.
Way closer.
You are.
picked up the ball and got it a little closer, still not in the end zone. I have not heard an update from Jessica on where that is. Last I heard,
Did you get any feedback? Because we had the meeting for the 30th and she pulled back and said she had more work to do. But I haven't had any feedback on what that was or where we're at, because we're supposed to have our public meeting in Arlington on the 30th.
she has not, I don't know any of that. The last that I
I'll
heard
put it down.
was that EDA had said, here's all the application stuff we need from you. Jessica got all of the governors and everybody to sign off like she needed to. And then they said, oh, by the way, your strategic plan has to be updated. GODC's strategic plan has to be updated. We need new maps from you. I mean, there was a whole list of things that came back from the EDA. And then, so I've been waiting to hear from Jessica what more support she needs from us, and she hasn't reached out yet. So it makes me think that she's still working on it, and
I'll find out tomorrow.
that would be great.
No, that's tonight. That's today. I'll do that on my way to Seaside.
Perfect.
So he was doing the mapping for him.
I think they must have somebody that they work with. I did offer up our GIS people if they needed help, but she hasn't taken me up on that yet. Since it's not really, I mean, it's, the map isn't really that complicated. It is literally taking the legal description of Gilliam County and adding it to their.
Well, what will
So
be
it's not
important in the process is, community input when we get into the strategic plan phase for input from the community on what they want some of the economic development stuff to look like, where we're gonna land.
Yeah. So watch for that. We can also, if we get some meeting notices related to that, send it out on our listserv too. The other thing that I totally spaced and should not have is I did want to announce, you guys got an email, staff got an email yesterday, that our planning director, Michelle Colby, gave us notice that she is going on to the next phase of her career elsewhere. So she has given us a couple of weeks of notice and is working, if you have a pending planning application, she's trying to get those moved as far along as she can. So I am working on a temporary transition plan. So I have, I reached out to Judge Morley yesterday to ask if their planning director, Matt, might be able to pinch hit a little bit for us, just to make sure that, you know, we continue to meet deadlines on planning requirements. And then I also have a call into the planning department over at City of Boardman to see if there's interest in partnering with us on that as well. So something for the court to be considering is whether long-term you feel like those services are better contracted or done by an employee in-house. one of the reasons I reached out to the city of Boardman is that our planning, our building codes is currently housed there, and so there's obviously some synergy between planning and building codes, and so I had explored, their planning director, her name is escaping me, but she did some contract work for us
Yeah.
previously,
Rachel or something.
and she used to be Morrow County's planning director, and so she's very well versed in a lot of the unique planning things that happen in Gilliam County from having
Carla.
Carla, McLean?
I think it is, yeah, so similar to that, good match, so.
Yeah, so very seasoned planning director from Morrow County. She's now the planning director for Boardman. And so, but she is on vacation until the 12th. So I have not had an opportunity to connect and see if they're even interested in discussing it. But that may be an opportunity then to have it all under one roof. And then we would explore, I've had some discussions with the assessor, with Chet, about whether we could have applications go into the assessor's office and then be transmitted to a planning director if we decided to contract out those services. So we're figuring out a way so that there's still somebody, a face that people can talk to directly, but potentially outsourcing the actual planning director.
So what is your thoughts along? We'll wait to see where we're at with that before we even look at replacing, fill that position.
That would be my recommendation. My recommendation would be that we hear whether there is a potential partnership either with Wheeler County or with the city of Boardman. And then that would be in the mix of the decision making, but I don't want to hire somebody and then have the court decide that they'd rather contract it out, because that's not fair to that person. My concern is, based on what Michelle has shared with me, is that there are a lot of planning departments looking for staff.
I think that's true.
And I'm not sure, given the technical aspects of what land use planning is and go in the state, it's not one that you can easily substitute staff in for. I mean, there's a whole body of work you have to learn to be able to do it, and it's a very technical process. And so
The land use stuff is such a moving target right now as they work through it.
it is. There's literally bills right now
The waste
about.
management stuff alone is.
And
could be
so,
daunting.
so what we do have in place is we have a land use attorney that will stay intact. And I've instructed Michelle to make sure that he's up to speed on all those applications. And so he'll actually be working through that process. So then my hope is whoever we use interimly is the one who is going to be just kind of interfacing with landowners and help explaining like what's the next step in the process and what we need back from you and those kinds of
Awful
things.
lot going around land use right now on energy too. That's just, yeah.
Yeah. So all of this to say, it may end up that the court decides that they want to hire in-house staff, and that would be fine. But I think we need to at least explore the options before you decide that that's definitely the path you want to go down. And it may be possible that our partners say there's no way we can take you on either and don't really give us a choice. So, but I wanted to let you know that I'm trying to come up with an interim plan so that those applications that are pending continue. But for folks who are pending land use or thinking about it, I just ask you to give us a little bit of grace. We're going to try to get appropriate staff as quickly as possible, but
with all the expansion in Boardman, that might be
it could be tricky. Yeah. So there's a couple of options.
Well, and I think the guy from Wheeler County wears many hats.
He does. And that was Judge Morley's concern,
Yeah.
was just making sure that they could meet the demand here and continue to meet, obviously, Wheeler County's needs. So we'll figure it out. But I wanted to sort of give you the public that heads up. So if you are trying to work something through with Michelle, understand that she's trying to process things as expeditiously as you can. So if folks just give her a little bit of grace, like she's trying to move things as quickly as she can before she's exiting. But I just want to set expectations that we're going to be cobbling together something until we figure out what the long-term plan is for the planning functions. So I'll get that in place as quickly as we can, and I will bring back an update during the next meeting. That may actually end up being something, if we do a special meeting in February, it would likely be around planning, if I feel like I need something from you guys to move forward. And I would be remiss in saying, I don't think she's on here, but just that Michelle has given a lot of years to Gilliam County, and that I appreciate in a lot of different hats. I think community development, and I think she may even started as like an assistant underneath the county court. So she's been around for a long time in a good way, and has given a lot of service in a lot of different capacity to the county and our constituents. So I wish her very well. She has I will not say what opportunity she has, she can share that, but she has a wonderful opportunity that she's accepted. My understanding is she's still gonna be in the community and of the community, but we wish her well on the next chapter.
She gets to work remotely, huh? For the most part.
Some, yeah. So, but that's her news to share, so I
Yeah.
won't share where she's going, but I'm sure folks will find out soon enough where she landed. Anyway, is there anything else for the good of the order? Not, it is 12:05 and I will adjourn the meeting.